All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about George Kambosos, Devin Haney, and VASYL Lomachenko, and an admission that Bob Arum makes that he can't afford that fight. So more than likely, you know what is going to happen. But let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Before I get into the subject matter of the video though, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Also, please make sure to hit that like button to watch the video all the way to the end. All right, so Bob Arum, who is the president or the CEO, founder of Top Rank and the promoter of VASYL Lomachenko, recently gave an interview in which he talked about how he was optimistic that he could make the fight between VASYL Lomachenko and George Kambosos for all 4 major championship belts, or the franchise belt, which, and however you want to do the WBC, you know what I mean. The fight with VASYL Lomachenko and George Kambosos. But in the middle of his interview, he says something that is very enlightening, and I think probably the most important thing that he said, which is that he doesn't know how he's going to pay for the fight. So I don't really know or think that people should be looking too much forward to George Kambosos versus VASYL Lomachenko in Australia. Specifically, what Bob Arum says is, look, I know George Kambosos' promoter is hopeful that, you know, that the guy in Australia is hopeful that they can find the money for the fight. I'm hopeful that they can make the find the money for the fight. However, with the COVID pandemic going on, I don't see how we're going to pay for it, because the government of Australia is not going to subsidize the fight if, you know, while COVID is rampaging through the country. So pretty much right there, he says, yes, I'm optimistic, and I'm telling you, optimistic and doing the fight are 2 entirely different things. Now, I also know that he said things like that Devin Haney is, nobody knows Devin Haney, and VASYL Lomachenko would be a bigger fight in Australia than Devin Haney would be, and all of that good stuff, right? And that he may very well believe that. However, saying that he believes that Devin Haney, nobody knows Devin Haney, is not the same thing as saying he's going to be willing to come out of his pocket to pay for a fight in Australia for VASYL Lomachenko and George Kambosos. Also, if you listen very carefully to what Eddie Hearn has to say, when he's talking about getting the fight with George Kambosos, he's saying that, you know, maybe there's going to be money out there in Dubai for the fight and looking to get other offers from other people in order to pay for the fight. So pretty much what it is obvious that you have here is that you have a George Kambosos who has 4 belts in the lightweight division. However, he wants the fight to take place in Australia, but there's no money for the fight in Australia, not enough to pay the salaries of fighters like Devin Haney, who gets, I don't know, $3 million a fight, something like that. Same thing would go for Devin Haney. And then, of course, Gervonta Davis, who is the cash cow in the division, and the guy that could probably make the fight work in the United States, isn't even going to think about going over there to Australia to fight him, and honestly probably does not even care about those belts. From my understanding, Gervonta Davis isn't interested in the belts and is more interested in right now in trying to get maybe a fight with VASYL Lomachenko. It seems like, you know, a good potential for a fight for him would be with Rolly Romero, but we just do not know. And I'm telling you, man, this is one of the things that is crazy in boxing. Like, George Kambosos thinks because he has those belts that he is this big mega star now. If George Kambosos was the star, if stardom was attached to those belts, and those belts had really true significance in that regard, man, there wouldn't be any question that George Kambosos could say, yeah, come to Australia, I'm going to sell out these stadiums in Australia, no problems, right? But clearly that's not the case. Otherwise, he would be saying, look, I'll make an offer to Devin Haney, or I'll make an offer to I'll make an offer to VASYL Lomachenko. I'll make an offer to these guys, but that's not what George Kambosos is doing. George Kambosos is sitting in Australia with the belts, but asking other promoters to come up with deals for him so that he can fight on that promoter's card, right? So it's just I personally, what I think is going to happen is that eventually they're going to go through all of this stuff. If Eddie Hearn can find some money for the fight in the United States, the biggest money for that fight would probably get paid for by Eddie Hearn, and I suspect that it would probably be in the United States and not in Australia, because the gates are going to be bigger in the United States than they are in Australia. But Bob Arum did not in that interview, because I know I've heard other people say that he was going to get out there and he's ready to outbid Eddie Hearn for it. He said, what he said that I heard him say was, I don't know who's going to pay for this fight, and the government of Australia is not going to fork up money in the middle of COVID-19. And last time I checked, COVID is not going anywhere, and nobody's talking about it. It's going in ebbs and flows. It may go down for a little while, and it goes right back up, goes down, goes right back up. And it's been that way going on 3 years now, or definitely over 2 years, whenever since about the time that Kobe Bryant passed. But I do believe we're in our 3rd year of that, and I wouldn't expect it to go away, anytime soon. So now there was talks, obviously, and here's another thing. Bob Arum really does not have to pay that money to go over to Australia, because all he has to do is wait long enough for the WBO to mandate the fight between VASYL Lomachenko and George Kambosos, and then get a purse bid. And in the purse bid situation, they're probably going to go and say, all right, it might be 60-40 of whatever the purse split is for Kambosos. It might even be less than that, because the WBO will look at what the past purses were for fights. And I wouldn't be surprised if they came up with a favorable split for the challenger. Anything is possible when you're dealing with an organization well known as whatever Bob orders. But, long story short, nah, man, I don't see this fight going off with George Kambosos and VASYL Lomachenko over there in Australia. I do not see Devin Haney and George Kambosos going on over there in Australia. None of the promoters are actually talking about doing that. They are just, play kind of lip service to the fact that they want the fight and they want a challenge for the fight, but I don't see it happening. And George Kambosos is a guy that is going to get mandated to fight somebody pretty soon anyway. It's either going to be the WBA man. Well, actually, I think he may not have a WBA mandatory unless they are going to well, I wouldn't call it a mandatory. They may consolidate the belts. If the WBA orders a consolidation of belts, then it's going to be George Kambosos and Gervonta Davis. If the WBO orders a championship, then it's going to be him. I'm not sure who the IBF mandatory would be, but I do believe that the last mandatory that was held was the IBF mandatory, and that's what George Kambosos had. So anyway, we'll see what happens. You let me know what you think in the comment section, and with that, I'm out. Peace.